Well, then I guess we're ready to hop into presentations. So exciting. And before we do that, I just kind of wanted to address the room and say I'm so proud of all of you guys. Thank you so much for dedicating basically your entire weekend to be here with us. Regardless of how awesome these presentations, and they all are awesome, regardless of that, it is so awesome that you guys all spent so much time here. To be here late into the night, it's my favorite thing to kind of watch all this stuff to come together.
Can I say something quickly?
Yeah, please.
The title does say BuildFest, but you all just did a serious hackathon, so don't be afraid to do more hackathons in the future. This is a legitimate hackathon, so.
Yeah, and I think speaking to that, I think a lot of you guys realize that even though we were kind of dealing with some simple technology this weekend, it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, but that's part of the fun, and that's why you guys are all here, is to learn how to do all of that stuff. So give yourselves a round of applause for all that. And then before we hop into presentations, some people I wanted to give some thanks to. First of all is Lee. They have kind of been behind the scenes a lot this weekend, but they really put together so much of the back logistical side of this event, and it really would not have happened without them. So thank you, Lee. And then one other thank you is Natalie Tyndall right here. She is basically the reason that this event exists. It was her idea. We had a social justice meetup that Texas Immersive hosted at the beginning of last semester. She came, she said, "This is awesome, I love what you guys are doing. Let's put together a hackathon," and now we're here. So thank you, Natalie.
Thank you all for doing it and making it happen. I appreciate that.
And this will not be the last one. We'll be doing another one of these next year, so look forward to that. And let's hop into presentations. So just to quickly...
Oh, you can go ahead.
So just to quickly introduce our judges, we have Ben, who is the TXI TA. I'm sure a lot of you guys know. Are you a judge?
I don't know.
I guess so. Just now.
He's a valued consultant of the judging panel.
It's official.
I love it.
Yeah. And then we have Aaron Riley, who I'm sure you guys all know. Natalie, who I just introduced, who's the director of the advertising school. And then Carly from Capital Factory. So we're super excited to have her here as well. UT as well? All right, so with that out of the way, let's hop into our first presentation, which, sorry.
So just really quickly about the flow of the presentation. Each team has about 5 minutes. I'll be keeping time in the back over there. You're not going to be penalized if you hit time or anything like that, but just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak and we're respectful of everybody's time, it will be a hard cut off. There we go. I'll also flash this light in the back when it's your 1 minute warning. So you guys don't have to worry about that. And everybody saw the order of the presentations on Discord, right? So when the presentation before you is going up, remember you are on deck. So get your team ready, jazzed, in the right mindset, but still paying attention to what's going up front. I'd really recommend everybody close their computers and devote their attention to what's going on. The edits that you've made already are on the slides. It's all good. And this is a time of celebration. You did all the hard work. It's about looking at what you created, looking what everybody else created, and kind of vibing with the fun stuff that came out of this weekend. So does anybody have any questions about the structure, how this is going to go? Okay, fantastic. Now we can get started.
Sweet. Also, one more thing. We are recording them. So try to stand within the frame of the camera you can see yourselves, and then probably stand in front of this as opposed to your slides. But that's small details. And then we will be able to do demos after presentations. The judges will have a chance to kind of go through the demos, but feel free to drop a version of your demo at the judges table when you come up to present. Alrighty, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So our problem is that 1 in 2 Americans are intimidated at the thought of going to the gym. We already, most of us know that exercising has a plethora of health benefits, which ironically, if you go to the gym, after exercising, you'll be less anxious. So we need to overcome this fear of getting into the gym so that people can have the health benefits of exercising. No one likes knowing what they don't know what they're doing. This fear can keep beginners from accessing the gym. They think that everyone around them is going to see them and be like, oh, they're an idiot, they don't know what they're doing. And that's somewhat of a fear that we need to overcome. Which is why we built Judy.
So, meet Judy, your virtual guide to the gym. Judy's a filter that's accessible through the Snapchat spectacles, and she shows you how to do exercises in real time that you can follow along in the gym, eliminating the need to keep pulling out your phone and Googling how to do an exercise, making it feel like everyone's watching you and you don't know what you're doing. She's also less expensive than a personal trainer and less intimidating than asking a stranger for help at the gym.
So right now we created 2 filters for Judy. The first one is what you can see in this GIF. It's the bicep curls, and then we also created a squat filter. So you put the glasses on, and you sit there and follow along with Judy. So that's what we got with our pretty basic tech, but we think there's a lot of possibility to go into like different levels. We're thinking of the possibility of adding cues, maybe tips on your form, like, hey, get your back up, stuff like that. Motivation, to make people motivated. A big problem is people like wanting to get into the gym, they just can't get the motivation, maybe even gamifying it. Doing full workout routines that you can follow along with, like following along with Judy. And then a big thing we were worried about is anxiety at the gym, feeling like everyone's watching you, just like everyone's judging you. I know anyone who's gone to the gym, there's just like self-consciousness. And so it would be maybe a feature where you could blur out people's faces, not feel like you're surrounded by all these people judging you. So there's a lot of possibilities, and it could go up to many different like levels for beginners. I think it's pretty endless with what we can do.
So that was our project, and if you guys want to try it out, you can scan these codes, and it will pop up on your Snapchat.
Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be here and listen to all of our concepts. So our build concept uses Snapchat softwares as well as translation softwares, hopefully in the future, we'll get into that, to break down language barriers that prevent patients and providers from having the real connections that they need during treatment. So the big problem that resides all over the world is language barriers reduce satisfaction and quality of healthcare all over the world between both patients and professionals. And a lot of times research shows that hospitals will implement translators or interpreters to combat this problem, but that actually increases the cost, also the duration of the treatment a lot of times. So
this also leads to a lack of accessibility in healthcare. So this is the problem that we're going to combat with Snapchat lens softwares.
So our audience that we are mainly targeting at this moment is patients in medical professions in the hospitals and in clinics. And we did this to allow that the communication between the two parties are a bit more easier and cost efficient and more hands-free. So we started to use the Snapchat Studios and the spectacle glasses to assist the area between making communication much more easier and smoother with the patient and the provider, such as using, so like we would do like Spanish to English, English to Spanish, and for other languages as well.
So the lenses are intended to be used by both the health professional and the patient. So the speech from one person will be translated into text in the native language the other person uses, and this text will be displayed in the spectacles. In the demo, we modified the speech recognition template to recognize common phrases that healthcare professionals use in English and translate that into Spanish. We chose these languages to start with based on the need in Texas medical centers. So these are a few examples of the language lens in works in the spectacles and in the Snapchat mobile app. So we'll play these videos to give you a little taste of what this experience is like. So here we see the text show up in Spanish, and we can also see this in the Snapchat mobile app.
I am the doctor who will be taking care of you today. What concerns brought you here? I am the doctor who will be taking care of you today.
Okay, and so with more research and more resources, we found that our language lens can be applied to different spaces. So we can use this as a two-way translation with more languages in the immigration and humanitarian nonprofit space, as well as in education. Using our lens, we can break down these barriers that exist as far as languages. And what we'll need to keep going. So a big limitation that we found in Snapchat Studio was that we couldn't use outside translation software. And so we would need to work alongside Snapchat to figure out how to combat that issue. Also, we would need to perform more primary and secondary research with our audience to figure out their needs and make sure that we meet those needs, as well as consult with translators to make sure that we are using the proper terminology. And so if you guys are interested to see our concept, we'll be happy to show you after the presentation.
Oh, yeah, I can ask questions. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna ask you all a question.
Okay.
This would be fantastic, especially for the deaf and hard of hearing community. And having worked with that community, especially in terms of medical issues, there's a really big disconnect between actual people who can actually translate and do that in a medical setting. Could this be used for that? Would this be something? Could you see that being used with ASL to provide deaf people with access to their providers without having to get an outside interpreter who might not be fluent in actual medical language interpretation?
Yes, so for people who that is possible, especially for people who are also maybe blind. You can also use the text speech as well as an alternative to it's accessible for both people who are blind and also those who are deaf.
Yeah, and we discussed that. That would be one of those like futuristic things that we would love to kind of build upon, multiple languages, including ASL.
And if you did do it with ASL, you would have to bring in people who actually use ASL, and also I would say deaf people to your team. When doing this, was there anybody in your group that actually spoke another language and had dealt with these issues, or had family members that dealt with these issues?
So my mom's actually a physician, so I know she's a physician in Alabama, and I know, like, just talking to her, she's always had this issue, like, how do I communicate with Spanish speaking, because she doesn't speak Spanish at all. So I had that viewpoint, but I don't speak another language besides English.
My mom is a nurse, and that's kind of where this idea stemmed from. So a lot of her patients speak only Spanish, and she's told me the difficulties of trying to figure out like which translation apps to use and how that kind of serves as a barrier between the connection with her and her patients. And as well as my grandparents who aren't very fluent in English, my mom always has to be there to serve as an advocate to make sure that they get their needs met. So in that case, this is what this kind of application is geared towards.
And it would alleviate burdens, especially for younger, like children, family members who have to translate for the adults in their family. It's the adultification of children, with immigrant children or children who speak English in their household. That's also a huge factor that this could alleviate as well. So I think there's a lot that you could do with this, and so I was just thinking about those different things.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting idea, and just to address the ASL thing, they were focused on speech to text, so for language barriers like that. With the ASL one, there's actually a hand tracking example that's been using ASL, which is kind of interesting to look at too.
But the speech to text one still could work for ASL, because if they're
They
speaking,
can have like a character signing in there.
Yeah, we
and
also-
also just the text, because people can
Oh,
they could read what the doctor's actually saying, and that actually might be better for some people too.
Them reading lips and stuff. Yeah.
Now, we did have this one conflict of what happens we have an immigrant who doesn't know how to read their language. So that's where we come with the text to speech to also provide that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
I'll make one comment as well. My mom works in the medical malpractice space, and we were just talking about this last week, that because I had a friend who had a similar situation with her mom needing to be in the hospital and having to take off work and having to be there with her at every moment. And so I love the ability to alleviate some of that and have some assurance, but also on the practice side, there's a lot of malpractice claims that happen when there's a language barrier. So you could potentially have a buyer in the ones who have a lot of money because they need this, and it is a law that you have to have a translator present for those interactions. They don't always enforce it, but it is a Texas law that you need to have a translator present. So, and I believe my mom said that's across the country. So, really great work. This is awesome.
Yeah, and all translators aren't equal.
That's very true.
And so this would actually help cut down on a lot of mistranslations or misdiagnoses that are badly interpreted. So
That's kind of where our head was at also with immigration law. For examples of like families being separated at borders, a lot of times there's just like not that connection there because of language barriers, and there's a lot of miscommunication in situations like that. So that's kind of what we were thinking in terms of that, but it can be applied in a lot of different spaces. Like this is really necessary.
And there's also not necessarily an alternative. So there is the glasses that we can use, but there's also the phones for now, as it's widely more accessible. But we also have that alternative as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we printed out these takeaways for you. Yeah, for sure.
Can we go back and ask Judy questions? Because I feel bad.
I know.
Oh, can we ask Judy?
Can we go back and ask Judy questions?
Yeah. I mean, the plan was to do the presentations, and then you guys are gonna have time to go to each team, do the demos, and talk about.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
So ignoring,
So we won't ask questions.
I think you can ask, like, if something's confusing, ask a question, but to talk about like future implementations or big things like that, just probably wait until the demos.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry I didn't make that before.
We'll have questions for Judy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
we have questions for you guys.
We'll have questions for you. Sorry for messing things up.
No, it's okay.
Oh, sorry. Wait, that's where up? I don't know. Okay.
Oh, no. Sorry.
I notoriously mess up time. So.
Are we ready? Okay, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, so we decided to cover neurodivergence in higher education with the hopes of accommodating students, educating faculty, and acclimating to a new environment. So the issue is that a lot of students at UT face hurdles when trying to get accommodations for ADHD or ASD. And the obstacles make it really difficult to succeed in the classroom, whether that be like strict deadlines or testing requirements, and testing is usually like thousands of dollars. And so a lot of students can't access the accommodations that they need, and faculty have a hard time empathizing with that if they haven't been through it themselves.
And so ultimately, through this experience, we'll be making use of Mozilla Hubs and 180 video. Mozilla Hubs there will be sprinkled out sounds throughout the experience, so you can experience a distracting environment without accommodations that students who are not approved or do not obtain accommodations by that point in time. And the 180 video is in order to immerse yourself in the experience with that conversation with a professor and how that conversation goes, and sometimes it doesn't go in the most positive direction.
So then the reason why we want to do this is because in our research we saw that 30% of higher education students are neurodivergent, and actually most of them don't have the resources they need. And when we looked at it, it was actually that the students saw that the faculty and staff didn't truly understand what being neurodivergent meant. So we tried to create an immersive experience that is going to be used to train faculty members in order for them to better understand the needs of the students.
And so ultimately, we'll be targeting these higher education professionals, and it really helps current future students, but not only those who are neurodivergent, but also just current and future students in general, with the Universal Learning for Development, what is it?
Universal Design for Learning.
Thank you, Universal Design for Learning model in terms of just helping the overall mass of the class, and not only those neurodivergent students.
And in the future, this can be implemented in UT training for faculty and staff. As a TA, I've had to do a lot of presentations, and they're kind of boring. Our experience is more immersive, and it kind of gets you more in that first-person view of what it's like for these students and kind of empathize with them, which is really important. And then once it can be implemented at UT, we can even expand further than that, and it could be implemented nationwide in colleges and universities around our country.
We kind of made like a framework that we start at UT, but it could also be sent everywhere because it happens on every college campus.
Exactly.
So ultimately, we recommend playing this experience with headphones, and as also like kind of like a solo project for yourself. This is the link whenever you would like to experience it. And thank you so much for listening to us.
Oh, okay.
Discord.
We'll have it set up on a table back here after.
And for this presentation, we actually want your computers open, if you would. We sent a link on Discord, and you can download it to Mozilla Hub and check out the experience while we're presenting.
Hey, sorry. You guys, your slides are not updated. Give me just a second.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
It is. And this will give us time. It takes maybe 30 seconds or 40 seconds to upload everything. So what we created is basically a virtual polling experience. This is something that I did not know. It's been a while since I first time voted, but really there is a leap of faith for people who have never voted before to visit a polling location, and many times they have a lot of questions. Let's go to the next one. So first, this is our problem. First-time voters are hesitant and don't know what to expect. In fact, there is a secondary audience that we feel that we have, and I'll talk to it just a second. So we feel that there is a real easy solution for Mozilla Hubs. Just create a virtual polling location that would educate a new voter on the experience. So our audience is first-time voters and county registration offices, but we also feel that anyone that feels that English is a second language is also very much affected, and we've talked to people about that. Go ahead. So we actually went to a voting, or I went to go vote on Friday, And I experienced the location and kind of took visual images of everything that we were doing. And I was asking people what they thought about the idea, and the volunteers there loved it. They thought it was a really good solution. And a good friend of mine took his daughter to go vote also this weekend for the first time. And she had so many questions. She didn't know what to expect. And basically, she didn't know what she was walking into. And so, Dina and I created a walkthrough.
Yeah, so here I'm going to talk about the walkthrough. And with that, first of all, I want to talk about what the future could hold for this as we go through it. So it could be demonstrated in different counties. So for this demonstration, we did Travis County, but I could see it where I'm from in Fort Bend ISD, and for any other county and any other state. I was talking to someone else who's from Alabama, and they said they still do it on paper. So we want this experience to be like an actual walkthrough of what voting is really like, so that people have that. And we also want to work with Ballot Vote, which is a company that like you can enter in where you are. They tell you exactly what you need, because we see that a lot of people get turned away from the polls even when they have all the information because it's due to volunteering basis. So here's a walkthrough, here's our photos. So you would enter in right here, and this is what you would see in your voting room. And then you would have like the booths, and so we kind of tried to demonstrate it exactly like what the Travis one looked like. And then they have little speech bubbles, my little half people, hi. And they're like, hi, do you have your voter's registration? Do you have your ID? Okay, great. Like, here's your like ballot. Walk to the voting place. So they walk, they vote, and then they drop it off in this ballot drop. And then, yeah, and then going on to the next slide. This was like where you walk in the beginning, and this is how you go around the building. And so outside of the building, since you can't have any voter, like we tried to make it as realistic as possible, you can't have like 100 feet away any like form of like propaganda. So we like, you know, moved the signs outside, and then we went ahead and put like a voter's guide that has all these links, like Travis County. It has links to where you should go when you want to register. It has like first-time voter, like who the candidates are, because we noticed like a lot of people, like to be honest, you only know the first two names, and then like the rest of the people, you're like, who are they? So we want people to be like understanding of who they're voting for and who they're electing, because we are the people who are making the change when you go ahead and vote. And so yeah, thank you, and make sure you go vote. And really fast though, like it's not just for like your typical user, as we were saying, it's also for people who come to this country and don't have any idea how to vote. Like my mom did not vote in the States until I was 18 because she just didn't have any idea how to do it. So we want to implement this and make sure that everyone has their voting right and everyone can vote for people who they feel will run this country the best they can. Thank you guys. Do you have any questions?
I think we're doing questions when we come and do your demos and with you at the table.
Cool.
So yes, we do. Thank you. We just messed up earlier.
Civics knows they have it up there too.
That's actually very helpful.
Midterm elections for student journalists,
I mean, you guys make sure that you don't put it on your slides.
elections and promoting elections and using advertising for our journal communication classes. So there's something easy to use.
All right, welcome guys. We are Green Purchase, and we created an AR application to shop more healthy, sustainably, and efficiently.
Yeah, so as he said, it's used in AR, and you can use either Snapchat spectacles or just Snapchat on your phone. And we have a little demo video of basically how it works. So when you're shopping and you have the spectacles on, basically there'll be like a red X or a green thumbs up determining whether the product is sustainable and healthy. And basically, when you first see it, it'll just have that, but then when you tap on either glasses or Snapchat, it'll bring up an infographic with detailed but at the same time concise information about the products, like, this company, was it's like a registered B Corp, which means it's like really like sustainable and it's like certified, or like, oh, this has an extreme amount of salt in it, or this is like dangerous if you have X, Y, or Z allergy.
Okay, so like so what problem are we solving? The first problem we found is whenever we purchase a good, we have like all the information about ingredients, but if that's like too much information makes it so hard to pick the right product. And the other thing is a knowledge barrier, because even though we want to buy the eco-friendly products, but it's just extremely hard for us to determine, oh, the carbon emission and other factors that can make it just choose the right decision or like the right product. And the last one is the sustainable in action, because all these like barriers and all this like difficulty people are facing, even you are a eco-friendly person or you care about the environmental factors, it's like just hard to implement or like take actions in your real life or just like your daily life.
Yeah, so why is this important? We want to solve or help people buy more sustainably and buy more healthy and make those decisions for themselves. But a big issue is convenience, and a lot of people don't do that because it's not convenient to go onto your phone while you're in this grocery store and try to go through all the different articles and figure out what's brands are sustainable and what aren't. And certain labels, like organic labels and cage-free labels, don't really tell the whole story. So using this technology, it would allow for people to be more, just to automatically, while going through the grocery store, sort into categories, whether based on your own, what you want individually. So whether you should buy this or not buy this. And a very easy visual indicator. And then if you click on that, you can gain more information.
Yeah, so our target, we've touched a lot on the like eco-conscious, but also health-conscious. So I mentioned before, like it'll have warnings for like salt, like if it's like too salty, or if you have a certain like allergy, you shouldn't eat it. But we also want to touch on stuff because there's a lot of there's a good amount of ingredients that are like banned in other countries, like European countries, but they're still legal in America. So we also want to bring those to the attention of people. I forget exactly what it was, like rhodium something. I don't know. It's stuff you've never even heard of, right? But it's like pretty dangerous, and it's still in a lot of our food today. And unless you go look it up yourself, you're never going to know that. So that's kind of also something we want to target. Yeah. And just people who want to optimize the shopping experience, because, I mean, as you saw in the video, it's like you just scan it, boom, there. It's like extremely fast.
Yeah, so our goal is basically just want to like encourage people to take small steps in their life, and in the future, gradually you'll have an impact on the whole environment. And the second, we just want to save your switching costs whenever you do the grocery shopping, and also just make like the purchasing decision more easier. And our advantage, obviously, we have provide a sustainable solution, and our devices are pretty easy to use. You can just connect to your phone and whenever scan it, and all the information pop up. And the last one is customizable, so you can put filters like what food allergy you have, or what factors, like ingredients you don't like, whatever, or you care about the salt level, kind of stuff.
Okay, so that is your 5 minutes. So if you guys are ready, I think we're going to transition to the next.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we'll have the demo at our table, and we can talk more about like
Don't
stand in front of the slides.
Don't stand right
here. Yeah, so this part's fine.
Can I stand over here? Is that? I'm over here.
Yeah. Hey, can y'all scooch just a little bit over so you're like right on front of that TV? Perfect. Does it matter if Sarah's computer is on? It's fine. Okay, we're good. The thing is, the light's still on, so I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Looking for the okay. Cool. Hi, we are Story Run, an augmented reality social impact campaign that incentivizes middle school and elementary school age children to exercise using familiar physical and digital motivations.
Hello. So as you know, exercise is very important, especially for young children within elementary and middle school. As the CDC has said, they recommend that kids get a minimum of at least 1 hour of exercise a day, and in the public school, it's actually in a lot of cases, they're getting half of that. A big reason for this is due to budget cuts at the turn of the century, and as seen in a study by University of Miami economics professor, Annalise Packard. It's due to because of the excessive cut of fundings for physical education. Physical education is almost obsolete, especially for males within elementary middle school age. So it really does nothing at this point. It even shows in a 2018 national study that of 1,000 participants, 34% that they felt embarrassed by their PE classes, which then affected their need to exercise as they grew into adulthood.
So as we all know, there are pros and cons to technology. For adults, they are actually encouraged by technology to work out with the introduction of Fitbit and other online workout-related products. Big shout out to Judy. However, for a lot of kids, kid-oriented technology, it's mostly stationary games in which a player could easily stay inside and play all day. And with technology, there are actually opportunities to get past this barrier. Snapchat, as I'm sure you are all aware of at this point, they have these 3D image filter things, which can actually be used as a workout tool. And not only could these be really fun for the kids to play with and a unique experience, but it can actually allow them to play like a fantasy game in the real world and add new meaning on top of everyday life.
So, introducing Story Run. This is an augmented reality experience. The goal of which is to escape from a goblin who is chasing you in order to catch all of the mushrooms towards the goal. Now, as you run across this starry path here, you collect these mushrooms. You can collect stars in order to get power-ups. It gives you a little speed boost, particle effects, animations, and to try and incentivize you to complete this objective. This current implementation is using the path template in Lens Studio, where we can draw this static line for the children to run along. This line also helps our users stay along an objective, pointing towards it, allowing them to clearly mark towards, if maybe they grab one mushroom but then can't find the next, use the path in order to find the next place to go.
So for future implementations and moving in the future, we will be using spectacles, so that way we don't have to use our phone for now, but also adding audio as you collide with the mushrooms, with the stars, as well as adding an audio for the goblin every 5 mushrooms caught or something, so you really get immersed in this experience. We would add animations for both the mushrooms and the rotating united mushrooms. And then we would also make it multiplayer, so you can connect more than one person with the spectacle, so you can allow competition and engagement throughout, so making it fantasy and excitement, and then multiplayer ability of a video game to physical fitness. Thank you.
Alrighty. So I think that was our last team. So thank you guys so much. Those were all fantastic. I think our judges are going to have a real hard time coming up with our winner. So I think Sarah, do we have lunch yet?
Yes, so